Hey there, I'm Megan from LittleTennesseeHome.com, and I am so excited that you have received your potato flake starter. So I'm going to go ahead and teach you how to go ahead and get it active so that you can be making bread in no time. So first things first, go ahead and make sure that you have a large container. I have a quart size glass mason jar. You don't have to have this size, but this is what I keep my starter in all the time. And I use a plastic lid. The reason that I use plastic is because if you use a metal, it will rust over time, and you don't want to risk contaminating your starter with any rust. For today, if all you have is a metal lid, it's not gonna be a huge deal, but I do suggest maybe getting a plastic lid. So you're also going to need your instant potato flakes. This is basically what you would make mashed potatoes with, just instant mashed potatoes. You do want to make sure that it doesn't have any additives in it, no garlic, no butter, no extra ingredients of any kind, just potato flakes. You're also going to need sugar, just plain white sugar, and a measuring cup for getting some water to add to the mixture to feed. So whenever you get your starter in the mail, it's going to be in a jar, and inside of your jar, it is going to be inside a baggie. Now, you're probably going to see a little bit of bubbles. This is going to help indicate that it is an active starter. Your starter is going to need to be fed right away because it has been hanging out in the jar for a few days. It is sent in priority mail so that it will get to you as soon as possible, but you don't want to neglect it. I do want to point out that whenever you're using potato flakes, just like with any potatoes, there might be some brown specks inside of your starter. Those brown specks are just from the potato flakes. The skin of the potato got in with the flakes, and that is what the brown specks are, what you are seeing. So you have two options on transferring your starter to your jar. The first option would be just open it up and pour, or you could tilt it, cut off the end, and then just pour it in that way. Whatever way you feel most comfortable with to prevent wasting any of your starter is the way that I would go about it. I'm just going to pour it out from the top. So what you're gonna do is just gently massage it just to kind of incorporate the potato flakes and all of the mixtures together to make sure that the least amount sticks in your bag as possible. Go ahead, open your bag and transfer it into your jar. Now, this is gonna have a bit of a alcohol smell, and that is normal. That's what you want. What you're gonna do now is you're gonna have a very small amount of starter. It's about 2 ounces, but it is going to thrive and feed off of what you give it. So you're gonna start with a cup of warm water. The warm water doesn't need to be hot because it will kill your starter. I have taken the temperature of the water that I like to use, and it's about 100 degrees. I do get it straight from the tap. And once you have done this for a little while, you will be able to just fill the water and see the temperature that you need just by touching it. So once you have your cup of water, you're going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. The one thing I do love about this starter is it doesn't have to be exact. So it's just a little more than 3/4 of a cup, a little less than 3/4 of a cup. It's gonna be okay. This is a very forgiving starter. Your instant mashed potatoes, I just keep a 1 tablespoon scoop in mine because I use it so often. 1, 2, 3, you're just gonna add 3 tablespoons of potato flakes. Stir this up. and add it to your starter. I do like to try to scrape out everything that I can out of here, not to waste anything. Give this a stir. It's gonna leave you with about a cup and a half of ingredients in your jar. Put your lid on. You're gonna wanna put it on fingertip tight. Fingertip tight is where you start to screw on your lid, and just when it starts to resist, that is fingertip tight. You're gonna leave this out on your counter for about 8 hours or so, and then you're going to stir. That's gonna be your next step. Okay, so after it has been about 8 hours, go ahead and take off your lid. You may or may not see any bubbles rising up in your starter. If you do, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too. Go ahead and take your spoon and give it a stir. Put your lid back on. And then in a few hours, you're probably going to start noticing some activity, some foam forming on the top. You're going to give it about another 8 hours after this, and you're going to feed it again. Whenever you do, after you have fed it twice, your jar is going to be a bit fuller than the one sitting here. You're going to start seeing foam on the top, and that is what you want. It is primarily a liquid starter. You're going to see some solids on the bottom, and then the foam fluffy on the top, and then more liquid in the middle. After you are starting to see this foam forming on the top, you might even see some bubbles and almost like a volcanic activity showing up, bubbles coming up from the bottom, floating up to the top. After you do this, after you see this, your starter is going to be ready to use. If you don't see this activity, try one more feed. I would remove about 1 cup of your starter and then try one more time, and then you should start seeing some activity up at the top. It may take a couple of feedings to get your starter nice and active and strong again after being in transit in the mail. Once you are starting to see some activity in your starter, it is going to be ready to bake. I will say that the first batch or two that you make with your starter may take a little bit longer to rise, both the first and the second time, but don't worry. As you have fed your starter and develop strength in your starter by feeding it, it's going to do better and better each time. You can use this starter in lots of regular bread recipes. You will want to use a nice active starter for a lot of the recipes that require your bread to rise quite a bit. However, after you are feeding your starter over and over, you are going to grow it to the point that you're going to need to take some out, or your starter is going to get too large to maintain. And whenever I say that, I mean, think you've got a child and you have a grown man. You're not going to feed a child as much food as you're going to feed the grown man. So kind of think about that with your starter. When your starter is smaller, you're not going to have to feed it as much. Whenever it is larger, you're going to have to feed it larger amounts. So you want to keep it at a manageable child size amount, which would be about 1 cup is the ideal amount that you want to have whenever you're feeding your starter. So whenever you are feeding your starter, it is more than a cup, and you're usually just going to be removing about a cup each time that you bake. So you're going to want to take some out if you have more than a cup. You're going to put this in a separate jar. If you decide not to use it right away, stick it in the fridge, and this is what we will refer to as discard. You don't want to get rid of this though. It's kind of doesn't fit its name being discard, because you can use it. There are several recipes that I have on my blog that I will share a link with you for those discard recipes that are great for using up your starter instead of having to throw it out, because who wants to waste something that you have worked hard on, and who wants to waste ingredients in the first place? Whenever you are feeding your starter normally, you are going to feed it the same amount, the 1 cup of warm water, 3/4 a cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of potato flakes. You will let your starter sit for about 8 hours, allow it to become active, then it'll be ready to use in a recipe. Once you remove that cup, stick it back in the fridge. If you aren't going to be using it for several days, or if you plan to use it regularly, you can keep it out on the counter and just feed it every couple of days whenever you are getting ready to bake. So sometimes I will take out what I need for my recipe, turn around and immediately feed it again, and then you will be able to use it again in about 8 hours or whenever you see that it is nice and active. I'm so excited for you to be on this potato flake sourdough journey. This is my very favorite type of sourdough. It makes a delicious sandwich bread and so many other delicious breads as well. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me either through Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Little Tennessee Home. I'm on YouTube here at Little Tennessee Home, and my email is littletennesseehome@gmail.com. You can also reach me through the Etsy message feature if you have any more questions, and I will be glad to help you out the best that I can. Thank you so much for your purchase, and good luck.